The views are out of this world.
This thing is unbelievable. It sounds incredible.
Golly gee, everybody, look at that.
Do you know what this is? This loud, brash, orange four-wheel drive that's next to me? It is a tortured four-wheel drive. I'll answer it seriously in a minute, but this is a tortured four-wheel drive. This is a proper, capable, touring four-wheel drive that somebody's going to buy and leave it right here in the city. You can almost hear it screaming, "Let me out, let me explore the countryside." Now, what it is, seriously though, is the new GWM Tank 300. When it comes to anticipated releases on the Australian new car market, this one, over the last 12 months, it's been right up there. It's basically been this and the Ineos Grenadier that everybody wants to see. Well, we're actually going to get to drive one now, and most importantly, we're going to do exactly what we always do on Drive. We're going to take it on an interesting road trip. But the reality, two things really. Most people who buy these, they're going to keep them in the city, and that's why I joked about it being a tortured four-wheel drive. And secondly, every great road trip, well, most of us live in the city. That means it starts in the city right here where we are now. We're in Melbourne, and we're going to head down to the Mornington Peninsula. We're going to take you on a beautiful drive that you can do easily with the kids in tow, with the family in tow. Doesn't matter whether you're on your own or whether you've got a group of people. It's a really fun drive, easy to do, close to the city. Let's get into it. GWM's Tank 300 has been keenly anticipated, and at launch we're behind the wheel of the range-topping regular petrol Tank 300. Keep in mind there will be a hybrid version coming, but for now we're driving the Tank 300 Petrol Ultra. Pricing starts from $50,990 before on-road costs. Standard equipment highlights include wireless charging, heated and cooled front seats, Napa leather upholstery, a 9-speaker audio system, underbody protection and a front diff lock. Tank 300 is powered by a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine which makes 162 kilowatts and 380 newton metres. There's an 8-speed automatic and part-time 4-wheel drive along with a 2,500 kilogram towing capacity. Okay, so first up, the GWM Tank 300. This is a pretty impressive four-wheel drive. It's the first time I've driven it, the first time I've spent any real time with it. We've all been waiting for it to arrive in Australia, and I can tell you that it's a pretty impressive drive. It's not perfect, and there are a few little things that I suspect GWM will tweak over the life cycle of this vehicle. Let me get the negatives out of the way first. I don't love the stop-start system, and I don't love the electronic lane keep assist system. Everything else about the drive experience, though, is pretty solid. 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine. This is the non-hybrid that we're driving at the moment. 8-speed automatic transmission, part-time 4-wheel drive. The ride is solid in that it's firm, but it's not uncomfortable on these country roads. So it's not as squashy, I guess is the word you would use, as something like a Toyota Prado, but it's not as firm as a sporty SUV like a Porsche or an Audi might be. So the ride is pretty good. Does it work as a family tourer for long haul driving like this? I reckon it does. Well, you're not going to do a drive along the Mornington Peninsula without stopping in here at Mornington. And as you can see, I'm walking down the Mornington Pier. Behind me, you can see plenty of fishermen. They use the term keen fishermen. I can tell you these people are keen because it's pretty cold out here today. That's why I've got my hands in my pockets. This is a beautiful part of the drive. There's no doubt about that. If you get lucky, you might see some dolphins out there. We haven't seen any today, but you might see some. you get your timing right. And I think the key with Mornington is it's only 70 kilometres from Melbourne, so it's actually not that far away. Pretty big town now too. I'm told there's more than 300 shops over there, plenty of restaurants and coffee shops. And because it's only 70 k's from Melbourne, you can do exactly what we're going to do on this drive. If you have a late brunch, early lunch and start your drive in Melbourne, this is a really good halfway point to where we recommend you spend your first night. It's what we're going to do, but make sure you come through here, check out Mornington on your way down. Infotainment and cabin comfort. I have to say, GWM has done a fantastic job with this vehicle. It doesn't feel like it's been built down to a price. It actually feels like it's properly executed, well put together, and everything works. The switch gear is simple and easy to understand. The menu system through that central infotainment screen is not too complex. It's not too hard to work out. If you want to do things like turn lane keep off and turn stop start off, you do have to go through a few menu systems to get to it, but it's not difficult to work out what does what. Crucially for us on this trip, Apple CarPlay, which is wired, has worked very, very well. The wireless charging pad works well also. And your interaction with the GWM as the driver doesn't feel old school like the styling might suggest. This feels like it's technologically up to date and everything that GWM has added works well. Sorrento. Now, what a beautiful little town this is. And before you ask, yes, it is named after the Italian seaside village. Now, looking around, whether it nails the brief of mimicking that, I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. And I never did work out whether Tina Arena was talking about the sweet Sorrento moon here or back in Italy. But this is a fantastic town. As we said before, what you should be doing is spending your first night here. This is where you should stay if you're doing this trip. There's a lot to see, plenty of hiking trails too. That's one of the big ticket items. And of course, you can catch the ferry across to Queenscliff. Don't forget, the history books tell us too that this is the first attempt at European settlement in Victoria. Well worth a visit.
With your ghost, lonely and dreaming of the West Coast. I don't want to be your downtime. I don't want to be your stew.
Down there, guys, is a place called Flinders Blowhole. Now, it may not be working today necessarily because the tide is probably not playing the sort of game we'd like it to play, not pushing in as big waves as you might need, but I can already tell from up here that it looks amazing down there, very picturesque, and also the drive from Cape Shank across here to Flinders Blowhole is amazing. Really good road, really enjoyable. I'm going to wander down those steps. It looks like a bit of a hike back up, but it's going to be worth it. I'm going to go down there and have a look at the view.
We could live beside the ocean. Behind, swim out past the breaker, watch the world die. We can live beside the ocean.
You might not have expected to be able to visit wineries while you're visiting the Mornington Peninsula, but we're about to check out one of Victoria's most unique. Let's have a look at Point Leo Estate.
I am still dreaming of your face.
We're here with Roger Luncher from Point Leo Estate. Roger, first up, this is an amazing place.
Thank you.
The minute you drive through the gate, it's visible that it's an amazing place. There are wineries and then there are wineries, and I would say, having visited a few, that just where this is absolutely amazing.
I think that, it's clear that Point Leo Estate is definitely a tourism attraction here on the Mornington Peninsula and even for Victoria. It's the perfect combination of food, art, amazing views, great wine, all combined in the one location, so it's pretty impressive. The vineyard was first planted in 2004 and we started producing wine in late 2006, 2007. And in 2009, we produced our first Point Leo Estate label. And since then, there's been no turning back.
Just on the sculptures specifically, are they commissioned and brought in for a certain period of time? Are they added to? Are there some that will remain, or do they come and go?
No, they're all privately owned.
Right,
so
okay.
we're the largest privately owned sculpture park in Australia, in fact, the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
And probably in the top 3, top 4 in the world. It's really hard to tell when we're talking about private art.
Yeah.
And it's here to be shared. So, like I said earlier, some of the sculptures have been over the years collected. Some of them, like the Cause or the Rico Rennie, which is a beautiful Indigenous sculpture in the sculpture park, commissioned purely for this property, where the artists came out, had a look at the property, and kind of envisaged their piece here. We've got three dining spaces throughout the property, throughout the building, and every one of them have an incredible point of difference. So, from our fine diner, Laura, which is a two-hat dining room, voted best new restaurant when that first opened, an amazing destination, to, I suppose, the heartbeat of Point Leo Estate, which is a Point Leo restaurant. That's an inner city diner. It averages some great numbers during the week. It's got a great soul, all based around the wood-fired oven as well. And again, an amazing one-hat dining room, so the output is pretty cool. And then the wine terrace as well, where it's a perfect drop-in, family-friendly, come in and have just a lobster roll and a bowl of chips, or a big bowl of meatballs, and sit down and enjoy.
Now, let's take a look at interior storage and space. First of all, in terms of storage, the Tank 300, it's a big four-wheel drive, so you would expect that it's got storage, but it does have useful storage. I mentioned the wireless charging pad before. That's in a good place, stops your phone from moving around. You've got a movable shelf here that goes back into the center console. There are cup/bottle holders under that, useful bottle holders down there in the door, and little hidey holes for places like keys and wallets. If you move into the second row, there's plenty of room back there, even for taller adults, and I think that's a key, because if you're targeting adventurous family buyers, they're going to have kids that are eventually going to become teenagers, they're probably going to be tall, they're going to need room back there. So there's room in that second row, even behind my driving position, which has the seat set a far way back from the steering wheel. This is practical, but it's also comfortable, and that ties into the ride that I mentioned before, where it's firm, it's not too firm, and it's not too wallowy. I think it strikes a pretty good balance between the two. Some of you, if you're driving on rutted dirt roads for kilometre after kilometre, might think it's a little bit on the firm side, but for this type of country touring, absolutely perfect.
Australian native animals are some of the most unique anywhere in the world, and it's amazing how many Aussies haven't had a close-up experience with one of our national icons. Fortunately, Moonlit Sanctuary Conservation Park makes that possible.
We're with Sian from the Moonlit Sanctuary Wildlife Conservation Park. First of all, Sian, did I get that right?
Moonlit Sanctuary Wildlife Conservation Park.
Okay, that's good.
Perfect.
Now, we've got that right, the name right. What an office. How good is this? I mean, coming here to work every day, I think I could do this.
Yeah, it feels a bit like a dream, especially with all these kangaroos and wallabies surrounding us this morning.
Just appeared out of nowhere, yeah, exactly. Can you start by explaining, because a lot of people who are watching will have heard of a wildlife sanctuary, will have heard of a zoo. What's the basic difference between the two?
Well, in Australia, we consider a zoo with animals, exotic animals.
Sure, okay.
Whereas here at Moonlit, we just have native, so we're a sanctuary, we're a safe place for native animals.
The other thing too that's really interesting, I think, about a place like this is the number of different species. I think we've probably seen 5 or 6 in 10 minutes. Do you know how many you've got here approximately of different animals?
Yeah, here at Moonlit Sanctuary we have 70 different species with almost 400 individuals.
Wow, okay.
A lot of animals.
I would suspect as well, just from the way this is set up, I mean, it's amazing. We walked in here this morning and they know they're going to get fed, but all the animals turned up pretty quickly too. They seem, to be really comfortable with human interaction, But this strikes me as a really family-friendly sort of a place where you can come with the kids and you can just interact with these animals. And the animals aren't at all threatened. I mean, they're everywhere around us. They're not at all threatened by humans, are they?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the kangaroos and wallabies surrounding us at the moment have always had an association with humans. But we have this fence here that allows them to retreat to safety if they do feel like they need their safe space, which allows them to pick and choose whether they want to interact with us or if they want a safe place to have a rest. So we do our night tours here at Moonlit, and so when the sun comes down, we have a fully guided tour where you get to have a lantern, you walk through the park and you see all the animals that are awake, where typically they would be asleep during the day.
And there's a lot of that, is there, in here that would be otherwise hiding away during the day?
Yeah, a lot of our animals in Australia are nocturnal. So even if you walk through the park during the day, it's a completely different experience if you come at night time.
Don't leave the park without booking in for the koala experience. That way you can meet 9-year-old Gumnut like I did. She's more than happy to have her back scratched while she's feasting on some fresh gum leaves.
Hear me tonight, 'cause my feeling is just so right. As we dance by the moonlight, can't you see you're my delight?
This whole Mornington Peninsula area is fantastic, whether you're an international tourist, as there are so many. We've seen so many in the last couple of days down here from various other parts of the world visiting Australia. But even if you're a local, let alone if you still live in Victoria and you've never been down here. It's been a long time since I've been down to this part of the world. I've really enjoyed it, but it surprised me as well because of the variety that's on offer. So obviously there's a lot of focus on the beach and the sea and everything to do with that. However, 5 to 10 minutes away from any of the given beaches down here, you can be driving through rolling hills and countryside like I'm doing right now, and it's as if you're nowhere near the coast. It's a real dual character that you get down here. The other thing that I think is really important is the quality of the driving roads. We talk about great drives a lot on Drive TV, obviously, but the driving roads down here are really enjoyable. And that run from Cape Schanck across to the coast particularly was a fantastic driving road. And then there's also a lot to see once you get there, because it's all well and good to be the person behind the wheel saying how great is this, but everybody else in the car with you, well, they're going to want some things to do when you get where you're going. We've obviously looked at some of the wineries and the wildlife that's on offer down here, but every little town has got its own story to tell. There's a lot of history down here too, most of it maritime, but a lot of it related to early settlement and farming, things like that. And then of course, there's all of that amazing local produce. So plenty of fantastic places to eat, to grab a coffee, to buy local produce, to do some shopping, spend some money down here, and then take the produce out with you. This is a beautiful part of the world. We know that. If you've looked at it in photos and seen footage of it on TV, you'll know that it's stunning down here, but it's well worth getting in the car, coming down here for a drive and experiencing it for yourself. It's a fantastic place to visit. Make sure you get down here and check it out. Well, I have to tell you, this is one of those road trips I really didn't want to end. We've had an amazing time down here on the Mornington Peninsula. In fact, I reckon we might have to come back here and do another episode, because we'll be able to show you an entirely different side of it altogether. This is fun, it's a great drive. We've had fun in the GWM Tank 300, but this has been all about the drive, the sights, the scenes, the visits we've been able to do, and most importantly, I think, for those of you watching with kids, it's really family friendly. There's so much to do. There's no way in the world the kids will get bored down here. You need to pile them into the car and get them here, whether you live in Melbourne or whether you live further afield. Don't forget all of the information on the new GWM Tank 300. That's over at drive.com.au. And of course, as we always say, we'll see you again next week for another great drive.
This week's drive is an easy loop out of Melbourne City, and it's perfect for families. Leave Melbourne and make your way along the coast, heading for Ricketts Point and then Mornington, before making an overnight stop in Sorrento. From Sorrento, make your way southeast towards Flinders Blowhole before making your way north to Point Leo Estate, Hastings and Moonlit Sanctuary. Then it's a run through Dalmore and Officer South before making your way back to Melbourne and completing your easy and fun lap of the Mornington Peninsula. Next week, Emma takes the hybrid Mitsubishi Outlander on a towing tour through the Adelaide Hills in search of a great day out that's fit for the whole family.